there has been a lot of growth in the use of IoT, and consequently these are also used from a weaponization standpoint. So with the growth of 5G networks, that's only bound to grow by leaps and bounds. Content management systems have been heavily targeted. So these are the WordPress and other type of content management systems. So these are pretty much in use in large scale across the entire internet, and hence becomes an easy target for the attackers. Governance, risk and compliance continues to be complex. There are a multitude of compliance requirements that businesses need to comply with. So there are a lot of GRC requirements that are there, and that has become a lot of complex setup now. And in terms of the industries that lead or industries that have been most attacked, technology industries today have been are leading the most attacked industries. And one of the reasons is that technology today forms the backbone of digital transformation. And if and there's a lot of leeway to get once you break into a technology organization, because through that you could then get into into the supply chain. You could then get into attacks which are on the technology service providers customers as well. So technology companies have been prime attack targets in the past, as per the 2020 report. So defenders have their hands full in keeping their assets safe while complying with all regulations, and these defenders are basically you. So you, as defenders of your organization's infrastructure, applications, and data, have your hands full in keeping these assets safe, while at the same time complying with all possible regulations. And so these are some of the key recommendations that have come out of that report. First is intelligence-driven security. So this is where one needs to take a more proactive approach rather than a reactive approach. This is where one needs to address the complexity of the technology landscape and the threat landscape on that on the technology environment, and also leverage a lot of intelligence capabilities, so that this intelligence can bring in context specific to the organization. This intelligence can help detect threats and make sense of threats much faster, followed by continuous monitoring. So there we need to think about comprehensive visibility across the complete environment or the complete organization. So whether it is your endpoints, your data, your applications, your mobile applications, or your infrastructure, you need to have a continuous and comprehensive visibility across the entire stack, because you can't only monitor one part or a subset of those and then expect to remain one step ahead of the attackers, right? Monitoring the external environment like the dark web and deep web to track activity that is possibly being carried out against you, or which could give you early warning indicators of potential breaches. Followed by integrated operations where teams, especially cloud teams and application teams and maybe database teams, they don't work in silos but work as an integrated operations. They understand security and they take all possible measures to make sure that it's part of their daily work. Which brings us to secure by design, where security is aligned to the business requirements. Security is agile to change as per the business changes, and security provides an automated response. The secure by design concept provides an automated response to most of the threats that come in, right? Followed by controls standardization. So this is where one can adopt standards and frameworks like NIST frameworks or the MITRE ATT&CK framework to be able to detect and make sense of threat activity that is going on in your environment, right? Similarly, best practices and most importantly, repeatable processes, so that when a type of attack repeats itself, anybody else who's there in the SOC team is able to diagnose it in the same manner and in the same quality, right? So repeatable response is also important. And so what lies beyond? The evolution of sophistication of malware capabilities continues, especially ransomware capabilities. Additional reconnaissance, compromise, and propagation of IoT and the use of IoT for botnets. Continued deployment of spyware and keyloggers to harvest credentials, which are then further used in automated attacks. the efforts that attackers are putting in automating their own attacks by making the attack tools more off the shelf and readily available. And finally, use of machine learning and AI by threat actors themselves, right? So obviously, going forward, it's more challenging in nature. And with that in mind, let me now turn to Avkash, right? And Avkash, I would like to ask you. My first question to you is with all of this happening, with a lot of monitoring capabilities being put in place and everything, right? There are a lot of buzzwords and jargons that fly around. So today we have SOC 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, and whatnot. And everybody talks of automation, everybody talks of SOAR. So what, according to you, how do you demystify these jargons? What according to you is a SOAR, and what according to you is really the requirement or need for a SOAR, and what kind of capabilities can it bring to the table? Could you help the audience understand on those points?
Sure, Rishikesh. I think it's a good question, and this is a question which we keep getting in every other discussion that we have, right? Being part of the industry for so long, sometime in your peer discussions this comes up, or now being on the other side of the table, you've been asked this question many times. But one thing that we have to see, if I've been into leading the strategy side for large banks, one thing that I have seen is how we behave in cyber world somewhere is very much related to our physical world. How in military age, or our war age, we used to apply the strategy. Obviously, we first try to prevent something by putting a fencing. I know if somebody is going to jump the fencing, so we put some detection control around there, so that even if somebody is jumping, I'm able to detect them. But I know as soon as somebody will jump the fencing and I am monitoring it, I need to act upon it, right? So that's where the response strategy comes. And similar things we have seen in cyber world also. People has moved these different phases of strategy. We tried applying preventive controls, protective controls, which are definitely basic hygiene we must to do. But we know that attackers are not going to stop there, right? And that's where the whole SOC, the monitoring and the detection phase of the strategy evolved, where even if attackers are able to bypass those things, we have some detection in place. And now we are in the age where we have enough of detection already happening. We have partners who are detecting a threat for us. We have our SOC team detecting a threat for us. It's time to put a pedal on the response part, because one common problem that everybody is facing since start of the cybersecurity is the human, the manpower resources, right? And that's where you will see this technology keep on playing the important role. And response strategy is again one more strategy where machines will play equivalent role. Till now, we are relying on our incident response team to do those analysis, but we all know how much burden is going away on our SOC team to analyze those false positive in day-to-day they are monitoring. So SOAR is need of an art from multiple aspect perspective. One important aspect, immediate aspect is obviously automation and orchestration. But we need to see what to automate and what to orchestrate. The first priority has to be, identifying those mundane tasks which your analysts are going through, and how can you reduce those mundane tasks by introducing an automation. Obviously, there are other things which I will present on my screen. I will show you, but the idea is to not just look at orchestration as one of the piece, but look at other aspects as well, right? Hope you can see my screen, Rishikesh.
Yes, it's visible.
Yeah, I know I've put so many text here, but people who are familiar with the SOC will 100% agree that this is what their SOC screens will look like when they are trying to investigate just one threat, right? This is a life cycle. If you see, when you prepare for incident, you get attacked, you start doing the triaging of that incident, you contain the threat, you come out of that threat, you investigate, eradicate, and recover and document the learning and close the incident. So today it is complex from multiple angles. So many peoples are involved into this phase, so many processes you need to follow, and so many technical or technologies which we have. For example, if I see one threat happening on one of my endpoint or a laptop, I need to first know that, okay, whether this IP is actually a desktop, laptop, or a server. If it is a laptop, which user it belongs to, which department that user belongs to, or what security controls I have implemented. Does antivirus installed and running in that machine? Do I have an EDR control? Does this user have an admin exception given, or does this user has an USB exception given? So I have put so many security controls. At a first glance, I want to have a view around those security controls and a lot of metadata and the context. And this is where I would say, today pain area is I need to look into 5 different consoles to capture just one context. And once I know the context, to weed out those false positive, again to correlating this data and moving and taking the decision into the next phase. Those are few of the challenges that we have seen. When you start your SOC, you struggle, but as your SOC maturity go towards the next phase, you know that now detection is happening good, you're not getting so much false positive, contextual data is coming. That's where the next problem arises, that how quickly you can take the action or how quickly you can contain the threat. The whole metrics that our executives or the board member that want to track today, the MTTD, MTTR, and the new term we have seen MTTC, which is coming. So basically, we used to track mean time to detection, that how fast you're able to detect the threat, right? And now we want to know MTTR, mean time to respond, that how can we reduce our response time to a threat, or further drilling down MTTC, mean time to contain first, right? Before you respond completely, your first task is to contain the threat. Classic example would be, ransomware. When one of your machine gets infected with ransomware, and if it is like something like WannaCry, you want to make sure that you are containing that threat as soon as possible, because once that threat will start spreading from one laptop to another laptop, severity of incident can go up. So you want to make sure that your MTTC, mean time to containment, is always under control before you start responding to threat. You mitigate the threat. So these are, I would say, top burning issues that we have seen. Obviously, apart from the ground level challenges, executives always tend to look for 3 different things. Obviously, I want automation and collaboration. Automation mainly for reducing my MTTC and MTTR or those kind of metrics, but I want to make sure that I'm having collaborative response. The response is not happening in very siloed, where SOC team is just doing one action item while my antivirus team is not aware, or the asset owner is not aware. So we need to make sure that collaboration is happening, because incident happening on the laptop, desktop is still fine, but when you have critical business application being targeted, you need super collaborative approach while responding to those threats. And obviously, the contextual threat, right? As I was saying, that when you observe one of your machine visiting one malicious URL, rather than somebody telling you that, okay, one of your machine was trying to visit a malicious URL, what if somebody tells you that one of your user was trying to visit, or his laptop was trying to visit a malicious URL associated with WannaCry ransomware, right? So now you got more context about the threat, that how severe that incident can be. So bringing that threat context is super important, or one of the challenge that we have seen, that organization always asks that, can you give me more contextual information about this incident? You're telling me that somebody did a port scan, port sweep, or malicious CNC is happening, but can you tell me more details about that threat, right? So getting a context behind the threat is important. And these are some of the challenges I've talked. But let's say people, when you tend to think about SOAR, but we need to understand not any single technology can be a silver bullet, right? These are all the strategies which we will keep implementing with the right set of knowledge and the right set of requirements. So when we define our SOAR requirement, it is important to look for what you are looking for, right? Into the technology which you want to buy. As a practitioner, if I tell you from my ground reality, sometimes People agree, may not agree. So I just try to put a standard definition from Gartner, what Gartner has put into the research paper, and there's one more research paper coming out in this next month. So again, many thought leaders we have seen keep talking about these three aspects. When you define your security orchestration automated response journey, it should take care of automation orchestration, which I said, more for your technology enablement or talking to multiple technology and reduce those time. But it also says as incident response platform. This is where they talk about more people collaboration and process efficacy and efficiency monitoring. So that is also an equally important component. The third, threat intel. So why threat intel is important? Again, to have the context around the threats, or moving from IR to TR, what we call incident response to threat response. That's why these three pillars are important. And I would again drill down those three strategies if somebody wants to pull out that what are the further things that you should be looking. Obviously, automation and orchestration, we need to make sure that we are just not looking at machine orchestration, because as a CISO, if you ask me, I will ask that, okay, whenever the incident happen, it should 100% self-contain and self-remediate, and everything should do end-to-end automatically. But we know a lot of ground realities that when you start handling those, human is a key role and will always play a key role in somewhere decision making. That's why I always say that human to machine orchestration should happen, where human is equally participant into those orchestration that machine is doing and giving a right feedback what needs to be done. And similarly on threat response, I was saying that we should always eye towards moving from IR to TR, that incident response to threat response. And there are multiple aspects, bringing a context, or making sure each people are collaborating equally with each other, and you are able to trace back that today one of your machine did malicious communication. At a one glance, can you tell me that how many other similar incident that you had in your organization in past 3 months visiting the similar threat or similar URL or similar hash was found? So bringing those drill down threat analytics is important when you look for few key characteristics of your SOAR solution.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Avkash. So I think some of the benefits that I can see are things like being able to identify or analyze a threat much better and much faster, and then once that has happened, being able to respond to it in terms of going and taking mitigation actions, right? So just kind of drawing up upon that same point, what kind of role do playbooks have in this SOAR platform, and what kind of benefit do playbooks provide when it comes to detection, threat intelligence, and the automation part of it?
Yeah, so orchestration gets multiple benefits. Few already we talked, but if I just want to add few more, I might have some few slides. So maybe there are many benefits people will talk, but I just try to put down just top 5 from playbook, as you asked. When we talk about playbooks, so obviously one thing we want to reduce our MTTR, MTTC, and that's the common thing that everybody will start with a common goal. But as I was saying, that can we induct repeatability, consistency, and scale in IR operation, right? So how can you efficiently learn from the past incident that you have handled and reapply those learning, right? If I know that when last time I got hit by any ransomware, how I responded, what are the best practices that I followed, and which were the networks which got targeted, what types of machine which got targeted, what kind of response or the controls I put that time. If I have those documented learning, and can machine help me when next time I'm handling similar threats, can playbook auto suggest that, hey, I know last time when you were handling this type of incident, you handled in this fashion. Do you want to follow these 5 steps again, right? So machine coming to the rescue when you are dealing with those. So repeatability is one aspect that this playbooks or orchestration can definitely help you, so that the human or the analyst who is responding to that incident does not forget about one step, because what we have written in processes today is still on paper, right? We asked our analysts to follow that when malware severity 1 case come, or when website get defaced, you follow this 5 step. But how do we ensure that those steps are followed, right? And that's where we have seen that orchestration can be handy to impose those more documented playbooks in a fashion that it triggers a workflow, and it enforces any analyst to make sure that before you move this incident from one phase to another phase, or before you close this incident, you finish those 5 tasks or 10 tasks, so that I'm not worried about my analyst missing on 1 or 2 tasks when they are handling those incidents. And if you see the third, shorten the decision making cycle, as you were saying that attackers are also leveraging AI and ML. It's time that defenders also put AI and ML in practical use, right? And there are many ML use cases I can foresee of when you respond to any incident. As one use case is learning from past incident data, or assigning automated incident handlers, or how this incident was connected to assets, connected to the IOCs which I'm investigating, and can it automatically help me identify the related incident which are open and I'm investigating. So maybe there are within my organization, in silos there are 10 different incidents happening on different type of assets. Can machine learning analyze those incidents and the components of those incidents and automatically connect those 10 incidents and tell me that no, this may be a small event to you happening week after week and on different asset, but every one has this 5 common parameters. So multiple data analytics can be applied for decision making, and obviously collaboration, investigation, documentation will reduce by those playbook. This GRC thing, many times people not think that how orchestration will be used to derive those KRI and KPI, and I've seen this is much required. For example, when you are presenting to your board, right, they will less care about what type of incident you had, right? Then you need to start converting your incident data that you are presenting in more a business context, saying that okay, in last quarter we had 10 severity 1 incident targeting my marketing department, followed by my sales department due to lack of this security controls, right? Or maybe I had a security control, but control exceptions were being given to those departments, resulting into more risky business and more incident, right? So when you present this kind of KRI, KPI, those are like super helpful for any business to understand. But how can you actually go to creating this kind of metrics is where you need real-time access to your incident, asset control, any control exceptions being given. So many data is there lying in silos. So how your orchestration can help you bring those context first, and then help you calculate those complex KRI, KPI, which can be more sensible towards the business.
Great. Okay. Great. Thanks for that, Akash. So before moving on, right, I just wanted to give a note to the audience that while we go through this and try and understand the benefits of SOAR and what it really means, at the end of the session we have a demo that actually shows how all of this works in action, right? Implemented on a live system. So do make sure that you are there for the demo as well. So of course, moving on, so it obviously SOAR brings a lot of benefits, and you mentioned about KRIs, KPIs, and communicating the value to the CXO stakeholders, right? So with that in mind, how does one go about a SOAR strategy in place? Does one implement everything at one go and end up making a big purchase, or do you think there are levels of maturity that one can think about? Can you discuss on those points?
No, 100%. This is a great question again, where I still remember last month I was talking to one of the bank based out of United States. We were talking to their CISO, And this exact question came out saying that, hey, we have already purchased 5 tools or 10 tools best in class, and we have everything implemented, but can you tell me that is a SOAR a silver bullet where if I purchase and everything will start running in 1 day, 1 week, or 1 month? And if not, how we should be envision our SOAR deployment, or what should be the maturity that we would be looking at? And I would say definitely, being a SOAR vendor, I'll be excited to tell you buy this technology and 1 week or 1 month you are fantastic and you are a Superman. I would still refer myself from telling you that, because yes, these technologies are complex. It needs their own maturity time, and one need to plan properly, saying that how you will move from one level of maturity to another level of maturity, and that comes with proper planning and documenting your requirement, saying that in phase 1 what you will achieve, in phase 2 what you will achieve, in phase 3 what you will achieve. So whenever we go and talk to a customer, we always suggest a standard maturity model for adoption. I might have in my few slides, let me just check. Yeah, so this one is typically we discuss, and again we presented this at multiple places as well in large conferences, where how if customer is going into the journey of SOAR, we talk about a concept called cyber fusion, which we say it's more than SOAR. And why, you can see on the slide, we see there are 3 stages. First is incident management, then we say add orchestration automation, and then cyber fusion. People wants to start with automation orchestration, that's fine. Obviously orchestration and automation concept will come in all the 3 pillars, there is no deny. But when you want to start, you need to make sure that you are fully aware about your processes, your people, and the technology that you are using. You need to be 100% sure that when severity 1 malware incident happen on one laptop, you will go and auto quarantine that. But when severity 1 malware incident happen in any server asset, you will definitely not quarantine your server, because it will bring down your business, right? You want to make sure that in that incident happening on your server, you want that dedicated application owner to be notified in that case, and not quarantine the application and bring down the business. So lot of nitty-gritty of your incident management has to be documented and onboarded. First of all, you need to make sure that you have created central repo of all the incident, be it coming from your SIM solution, people manually reporting over email or ID ticketing system. So centralizing those at one place, and then also start with basic automation, at least keep take a help of automation for onboarding those incidents first at one place, right? And then enriching with minimal context whatever we can, and allow analysts to do response from the platform itself, rather than machine automatically taking 5 action. Just give those 5 action items to analyst and let him respond, what we call adaptive response, right? So response will be as per the analyst and how he will start, and make sure basics we are clear. Let's say we want to map to specific framework, CyberGate Chain or MITRE. We have properly mapped those use cases of your SOC and onboarding into the repo. Next phase is where you move towards orchestration automation, where you start automating, let's say 50% or 60% of your IR life cycle, and start bringing more threat context, that you go towards threat investigation, try to bring some threat correlation aspect into that phase. And the last is we call cyber fusion, where collective defense or the threat prediction is important, where you start connecting the dots. That incident came on this asset was having this vulnerability open, this incident was associated with this malware was associated with this IOC, this threat actor is popular associated with this TTPs of MITRE. So you start connecting those dots and have a a longer and bigger picture. So this is the typical maturity model that we ask our customers to implement. Obviously, the architecture wise, it may look very complex if I start showing the SOAR architecture, but that's why rather than I would say going to the SOAR architecture, this may be a simplified phased wise approach or a maturity model, I would say, for any company to adopt a SOAR kind of solution.
Okay, great. And you mentioned the MITRE ATT&CK framework, right? I think the MITRE ATT&CK framework has brought a lot of repeatability and allowed us to conduct cybersecurity operations in a more scientific manner, with everybody talking about the same terms and terminologies. So how can that be implemented in a SOAR? I mean, what is the relation between the MITRE ATT&CK framework and how SOAR can actually help?
That's again a good question, and this is one of my favorite topic because I do personally a lot of research around MITRE ATT&CK Navigator and a lot of MITRE projects. So if you allow me, I will just speak a little bit more around MITRE, where not just SOAR, but we'll see few more use cases as well. So first, let's say I'll talk more from an orchestration perspective, SOAR perspective, and how does the attack navigator fits into the overall ecosystem, right? So let's say here is your SOAR solution, and left side, if you see, I've tried to map my incident and case management data and alerts which I am generating or I am receiving. The same time, attack navigator is more the TTP database which we have, which will tell me more technical tool procedure level information about how and what kind of threats that exist outside. Then I have my own threat actor database, malware database. Again, this will be correlated within my SOAR solution to make sure that with each incident, I am extracting the threat actor information if possible, or malware information which will come in most of the malware related incident. But at the same time, I'm using orchestration to bring external context from the feed sources I have, like FireEye, McAfee Symantec, VirusTotal, Hybrid Analysis. Or if I have my own threat intel platform, I'm bringing those contextual data mapping from those systems. Or if I have my other technologies like EDR or malware sandbox, from where I'm bringing the additional threat context data to do the cross correlation. So now here you see in SOAR perspective, maybe I'm showing you one siloed use case where I'm using MITRE to automatically map my incident data, my TTP data, my IOC data, and maybe threat actor data if possible, by using multiple lookups. This may be a one simple use case, but if you want to look beyond, right, I always see that why MITRE ATT&CK can be a bigger use case for overall defenders, right? And when I say defenders, you just not have SOC, but you have incident responder, threat hunter, threat intel analyst, or your security architect. So attack navigator is something which can be used by multiple people. So if you just see what I was showing on a previous slide, you have incident, malware sandbox data, threat actor, TTP data is just an input. But on an output side, right, when your SOC team defining a SOC use case, they can leverage the data ingested on the MITRE ATT&CK Navigator to prioritize that which SOC use case I should start. Or maybe your threat hunting team, right? When they are starting to build a hunt hypothesis. So the first question as a threat hunter, I always ask is, what to hunt and where to hunt, right? So these are the two important questions I would say MITRE ATT&CK Navigator will help them answer. What to hunt? Maybe, I'll plot my threat intel data, past incident history data, create a heat map, and tell me which is the most popular TTP amongst all threat actor. Also, most popular TTP I have seen in my incident investigations. Show me that, I will start with that. So that somewhere gives me, as a hunter answer what to hunt. But the next question will come to my mind is, where to hunt, what the log sources I should look. And that's where again MITRE ATT&CK Navigator has those information. For per TTP, it will tell you that, okay, credential dumping, you want to start hunting, you need to have access to your PowerShell logs, or you need to have some agent running similar to EDR, which will give me more visibility if any PowerShell commands are running on the memory. So it helps you, not just from a SOAR perspective, but Attack Navigator helps you to go and look above and beyond for multiple teams, when they are running their day-to-day operations.
Okay, that's really interesting, because one would think that SOAR is only there from a incident and a response perspective, but with the MITRE ATT&CK framework mapped to the SOAR and all of the information that is coming into the SOAR, then doing the threat hunting using that, so doing a proactive detection using using different threat hunting models and leveraging the attack navigator within Cyber to be able to do that is really interesting, because it's not just about operations now, it's also about proactive detection, right? And that's one of the points that we saw in the entities 2020 data breach investigation report, or rather threat investigation report, right? So great.
Yeah, I just add one thing. There is one research going on. There is one more project which MITRE has released called CARES, Cyber Analytics Repository. Because till now, what you see is decision making. But what after decision making? Can your SOAR go and actually run those query on 5 tool or run those hunt hypotheses? That is the next more futuristic thing, and that's why there are open community projects which we are working, called, there's a CARE recently called Release Shield. We're trying to integrate and see that how those can become a real futuristic thing, and more innovation can be done towards orchestration aspect once the decision has happened.
Okay, excellent. Thanks for sharing that, Avkash. So now I think we've gone through a lot of theory, right? And we've heard a lot of concepts, we've heard a lot of reports and data. For the next part, what I would like to do is I would like to introduce and invite Srinivas Prasad. Srinivas is the practice head for security services at NetMagic. So all the solutioning and architecture that we do for our customers is basically owned by him, and even the operations is being done by him, right? And so when we use Cyber internally for the operations of managed threat detection to provide those MDR services to our clients, Srinivas plays a significant role in that, right? So welcome, Srinivas. Very good afternoon.
Thanks, Rishi. Good afternoon, everybody. So Avkash made a few of very interesting points where he said that most of the playbooks that the SOC is using today is on paper. There are different phases of closure for each incident, like detection, analysis, containment, remediation, that need to be tracked for improving the maturity of the SOC. Adding of enrichment data is crucial. And centralizing all of this data is very important from an analyst perspective, and we need to bring in we need to offer some role to the analyst to make decisions whether to respond or not. Where Avkash gave an example of whether you will quarantine a server versus quarantining an endpoint, right? So using the Cyber Fusion modules, Sifter and CSOL, we have integrated all of this with our SOC, and I'll be showcasing a small demo where we'll see all the complete integration in action. I'll just share my screen. Kshitij, you there? I can only share my screen. It's not giving me an access to share the video.
Strange, because you are in the admin panel.
No, I understand, but we have to play a demo video. All right, just give me a moment.
Yeah.
Srinivas, you could try sharing the entire desktop.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
That's generally something I've seen with the Teams. Yeah, we can see that now.
Yes, we can.
All right. So in this demo, we'll be running a fileless malware, which is very prevalent nowadays with all the crypto miners, the ransomwares, where there is OS credential dumping. That is the first step for lateral movement. So this is the setup that we have used in the demo. We'll be having the Cyber, CSOL, and Sifter, which is the SOAR and the case management platforms respectively. We'll be having an IBM QRadar as the SIEM. We have a Windows 10 victim machine where we will be executing the fileless malware. We have integrated it with the NetMagic EDR cloud, and we have enriched the threat intelligence using IBM X-Force and VirusTotal. So we've included a commercial threat intel and an open source threat intel to enrich the findings that we get. So this is the setup that we're going to use. Now what we are doing here is we are running T1003 of the red team assessments, which is basically a PowerShell Mimikatz that will do a credential dump. Now, if you see on your screens, you will actually see that the credentials of this user, the username and password has been dumped by running that particular Mimikatz variant. And now the same username password can be used for lateral movement. That has now translated into an offense on the SIEM, saying that a malicious PowerShell process was executed and all of these other events were identified. Now what we are going to do is now this is the Cyber Sifter platform, which is a case management and the SOAR platform. Using the SOAR playbook, now Avkash was talking about playbooks being on paper, right? Now we'll see 3 or 4 playbooks in action, where we have already integrated the SIEM and the case management solution to convert the offense that the SIEM triggered for the PowerShell execution, for the Mimikatz execution, into a case. So now we are running the playbook over here, and these are all the actions that it is doing. It is getting the domains, it is adding the time buffer, it is collecting all the offenses, checking if the source IP exists, destination IP exists. It is mapping it to the offense IDs from QRadar, and then subsequently a case on Sifter has been created. Now, if you see on your screens, these are all the phases that any incident would go through, right? And tracking each of these phases, how much time are we spending on containment, how much time are we spending on detection, how much time are we spending on recovery after an incident has occurred. All of these become very critical for a CISO to understand where the efforts of the InfoSec team should be, of the CyberSOC team should be focused around. So now we move into the detection and the analysis, and take it to the next stage, which would be preparation stage. Now we are going to run another playbook where what we are going to do is we are we already have an EDR agent running on that particular machine. We are going to invoke the EDR API and fetch all of the malicious processes that the EDR has identified. Yeah, if you see the EDR playbook has been executed, and it has checked the containment history. It has got the EDR events, and now all of that EDR information has been pumped into the case, and which gives the analyst a unified view of what he has seen on the EDR. If you see, all of these processes have been fetched from the EDR using the automated playbook. Now there was a malicious process of PowerShell that was identified with these indicators of compromise. Now the next step that the analyst is going to do is enrich that indicators of compromise with the threat intelligence that we have. We're going to run the enrich IOC's playbook, where the analyst is going to enrich this with VirusTotal and Xforce Exchange. So if you see, we extracted the IP address, we filtered the private IP address, because sometimes analysts make a mistake of putting in a private IP address in the IOC, and there will be no output that comes out of that, right? So we are going to enrich that with Xforce and VirusTotal, and then put the result back into the case. We've updated the incident with the IOC information. So if you see, the VirusTotal score is 7 out of 93, and the Xforce score is just 1. So there are very few engines that have detected this as malicious. And however, but the country from where the IP belongs is a Russian known bot. So we'll use the saying of it better to err on the side of caution and take the approach of containing the host. Now that would be the next action that we do, where we decide on the containment now. Here we are mapping the kill chain phase and the attack TTPs, so that we get a complete view of where the incident was caught in, whether it was in the reconnaissance phase, whether it was in the installation phase, whether it was exploitation. So this right now, the exploitation was successful because we already saw that the credentials were dumped, and these are the the MITRE attack TTPs that were mapped credential access for OS credentials, which was executed. These are basic incident analysis steps that our analyst is putting into the incident. Now, if you see, the analyst is moving to the next phase step by step. He cannot jump phases and close the incident. That is not permitted by design in the system, by choice. So the analyst has to go through every step. So the analysis and the chronology of the analysis, the quality of analysis is maintained irrespective of the irrespective of the analyst. So we are reducing human dependence, making it more system driven. At the same time, giving the analyst the power to make decisions based on all the information that is available to him. Now we are going to go to the containment and run the containment. Now what we're going to do is we are going to run another playbook where the Cyvera SOAR is going to call the EDR and contain the host. Now if you see on your screen, we've mentioned we've run the playbook, and you can see that it has fetched the collectors and it has quarantined the host. Now we'll go log into the EDR console. Now this is the EDR console that we use. You can see we'll log into the collector option and see that the host was contained. If you see this particular red icon just next to that host name, that means that the host was contained. Now from here, if you think this was a false positive, you can just go ahead and remove the isolation. We haven't done that though, because we know that this is not a false positive. So we are mentioning recovery details here on what was done. Persistence was removed, the processes were deleted, the host was isolated, the vulnerability that was exploited to run this particular shell is still pending. All of that is still pending. The identification was Sysmon events, the EDR events, and the SIEM events. These were three identification methods that were used to identify and work on this incident. Now, the learnings that we have from the incident is that the system was not patched, the vulnerability was exploited, and there was a port that was left open to the internet. If we are tagging it as a as a true positive and not as a false positive, and then we proceed towards the closure of the incident. Now, this was a very streamlined and process-driven incident handling. In addition to this, all of this information, now you can map the particular incident to a threat actor, you can map it to a threat campaign, you can identify similar malwares that were running, similar TTPs that was running. Based on all of this, if you see on your left side, there are campaigns that you can map it to, there are threat actors, malware, intelligence that you can map it to. All of this is available in a centralized location using this particular platform. Now what we are going to do is we are going to move into the MITRE ATT&CK Navigator and see how this particular incident comes up over there. Now if you recollect a couple of minutes back, we mapped the kill chain phase and the attack navigator. Now if you see, this is a MITRE ATT&CK Navigator that is available in the system itself, and this is a heat map. The incident that we just ran was a credential dumping and OS credentials that were leaked out. Now there are 25 APT groups that are using these credentials. So if there is any threat actor attribution that needs to be done, can be very easily done from here, and it can also be mapped to other incidents. So cross correlation becomes very, very easy. Right, and these are the log sources that were used to identify these this particular TTP on credential access, process monitoring, PowerShell logs, API monitoring if required, and command line parameters. So in our case, it was PowerShell logs and Sysmon events that helped us identify this particular incident on the SIEM. So now in the whole incident, what happened? There was a compromised machine where we used the technique of T1003, which was a malicious PowerShell execution on for Mimikatz. And then that made a connection to a C2, which was the Russian IP address. The logs from the firewall, Sysmon, event viewer, all of that was ingested into the SIEM. The CSOL, which is the Cyvera SOAR platform, queried the SIEM, bought all the incident details, raised a case on the case management system. then went to the EDR, collected all of the information, pumped it back to the incident management, went to the threat intelligence, did the lookup, added the enrichment information, then made an API call to the EDR to quarantined the machine, and then the case was closed on the case management system. So if you see the whole chain that the analyst has to do was very smoothly integrated by the use of the centralized case management and source solution. I hope this was helpful. Over to you, Rishi.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. It was extremely helpful and very comprehensive in nature. So thanks so much, Srinivas, for that. And I think some of the key takeaways that I had from this demo was that there was very minimal analyst interaction or analyst intervention, rather, I would say, that was required in this, and which basically makes it a very repeatable process. So while Mimikatz, it may look like it's a very common tool, and then one might feel that there are easily defenses available against it, but it's still one of the most popular tools, and attacks happen using that, right? So if you could mitigate such issues in a more automated manner, if you can respond to such threats in a more automated manner, that leaves you and your team with a better opportunity to look at the more advanced threats, right, and go and deep dive into the advanced threats, right? So I think that's also one of the benefits that the SOAR tool brings in. Okay, so again, thanks once again, Srinivas, and again thanks Avkash, for all the discussion points and the comprehensive demo.